Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the world of Bitcoin.
Ooh, Bitcoin.
We're going to break down the original white paper, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
Classic.
It's by Satoshi Nakamoto, of course.
Of course.
And we're going to explore how this digital currency aims to revolutionize how we think about money.
I'm ready.
Okay, so get this. Bitcoin promises a world where banks don't control your transactions.
Whoa, how's that even possible?
That's what we're here to uncover in this deep dive.
Right.
We'll unpack the core concepts of Bitcoin, explore its potential, and leave you with some thought-provoking questions.
Love it. Sounds ambitious.
Absolutely. So let's start with the problem Bitcoin tries to solve.
Okay.
The white paper points out that online payments traditionally rely on financial institutions.
Right.
So that means every time you buy something online, there's a bank or payment processor in the middle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes it kind of complicated.
Yeah, and it introduces trust issues, right?
Oh, no.
You're relying on this third party to handle your money securely, fairly.
Right.
Plus, these systems, they often come with hefty fees
Ugh, tell me about it.
and limitations on transaction size.
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to pay for a cup of coffee online with a bank transfer.
Oh, right.
The fees alone.
You'd be paying like $10.
Ridiculous.
Exactly. That's where Bitcoin comes in.
Okay, so
It aims to cut out the middleman entirely,
wow.
create a decentralized system where transactions happen directly between individuals,
Interesting.
peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer. Okay.
And the way it achieves this is through some clever cryptography.
Cryptography. All right. I'm intrigued.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Let's do it.
One of the terms that gets thrown around a lot with Bitcoin is blockchain.
Blockchain. Yeah.
What exactly is it, and what role does it play in this whole system?
So think of the blockchain like a giant public ledger.
Okay.
But instead of being kept in one place, like a bank's vault or something,
Right.
it's distributed across a network of computers all over the world. So every single Bitcoin transaction ever made is recorded on this blockchain.
So it's kind of like a shared Google Doc that everyone can see,
Yeah,
but no one can tamper with.
that's the idea.
Okay.
This distributed nature makes the blockchain incredibly transparent and secure.
How so?
Well, everyone can see the transactions,
Mhm.
but changing them is virtually impossible
Okay.
because you'd have to alter the records on thousands of computers simultaneously.
That makes sense.
It'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, but if there's no central authority controlling everything,
Yeah.
how does Bitcoin prevent someone from spending the same Bitcoin twice?
Oh, good question.
Like, what's to stop me from just like copying my Bitcoin and sending it to multiple people?
So that's the problem with double spending.
Okay.
And it's one of the core challenges that Bitcoin tackles head on.
So how do they solve it?
The solution lies in a combination of digital signatures
Okay.
and something called proof of work.
All right. So break that down for me. How do digital signatures work?
Basically, each Bitcoin transaction is signed with a unique digital signature,
Okay.
which verifies that you have the authority to spend those Bitcoins.
So it's like a digital fingerprint that proves you own a specific Bitcoin.
You got it. Like signing a check.
Okay.
Your signature proves that you're the legitimate owner of the funds.
Interesting. What about proof of work? That sounds kind of intense.
It is. Proof of work is the process that underpins Bitcoin mining.
Okay.
So to add a new block of transactions to the blockchain,
Right.
powerful computers have to solve incredibly complex mathematical problems.
Oh, wow.
We're talking serious brain power here.
So it's kind of like a giant Sudoku puzzle that miners race to solve.
Yeah,
Whoever solves it first gets to add their block to the blockchain.
it's a good analogy.
Okay.
This process requires a massive amount of computational power,
Right.
which acts as a deterrent against attacks.
Okay, so explain that.
So think about it. If you wanted to tamper with the blockchain, you would need to control more computing power than all the honest miners combined,
Whoa.
which is practically impossible.
I see. So proof of work is kind of like a security guard for the blockchain?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps everything running smoothly and prevents anyone from cheating the system.
That makes a lot of sense, but why would anyone go through all this trouble to solve complex math problems?
Yeah.
What's the incentive for miners to participate in this system?
That's where the incentive system comes in.
Okay.
Miners are rewarded for their efforts.
Okay.
When a miner successfully adds a block to the blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
they receive newly created Bitcoins.
Oh, so that's how new Bitcoins are created.
Exactly. This reward, along with transaction fees,
Okay.
that's what incentivizes miners to keep the network secure.
So it's like they're getting paid to keep the system running smoothly.
Precisely.
Okay, but this all seems incredibly technical.
Yeah.
Do you have to be like a computer whiz to even use Bitcoin?
Not at all. Satoshi Nakamoto actually outlines a simplified way to verify payments in the white paper.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Simplified Payment Verification,
Ah,
or SPV for short.
SPV. Okay, what's that all about?
With SPV, you don't need to download the entire blockchain to verify a transaction.
Oh, that's good.
You only need to download a much smaller part of it called block headers.
Okay.
Think of it like checking a receipt to make sure you paid the correct amount.
This is kind of like a shortcut.
Exactly. As long as the majority of the network is controlled by honest participants,
Okay.
called nodes,
Oh, nodes.
this method is considered secure.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the problem Bitcoin solves, the concept of a decentralized system, the blockchain as a public ledger, digital signatures to prove ownership, proof of work as a security mechanism, and even simplified payment verification.
It's a lot to take in.
But what about the people running these nodes? What exactly do they do, and how do they fit into the whole picture?
Nodes are essentially the backbone of the Bitcoin network. They're computers that store a copy of the blockchain and constantly communicate with each other.
So they're like spreading the information around.
Yeah, you could say that they verify and relay transactions, making sure everything's in sync.
So they're like the messengers.
Precisely, making sure all the information is flowing correctly. And there are different types of nodes, each with a specific role. Some nodes, called full nodes, store the entire blockchain.
Okay.
While others, like the SPV nodes we just discussed, only store a smaller portion.
Right, like a shortcut.
Exactly. But, one thing that's really intriguing about Bitcoin is that it's not just a technology, it's also a radical idea.
How so?
Well, it challenges the way we've traditionally thought about money.
I mean, yeah, it's digital money.
It's more than that. For centuries, we've relied on central banks and governments to issue and control our money.
Right, it's always been that way.
Bitcoin proposes a decentralized alternative, a system where no single entity holds all the power.
So it's like taking power away from the few and distributing it among many.
Exactly. And this has profound implications. Well, imagine a world where you don't have to trust a bank or government with your money.
Wow, that's a big idea. What would that world even look like?
Well, for starters, it could lead to greater financial inclusion.
Financial inclusion.
People who are
Yeah.
currently excluded from traditional banking systems, maybe because they live in remote areas
Right.
or don't have the necessary documentation, could potentially use Bitcoin to participate in the global economy.
Interesting. So it could empower individuals who are currently left behind by the traditional financial system?
Precisely. Bitcoin also has the potential to offer stability in countries with unstable currencies.
Oh, that's a good point.
Imagine living in a country where hyperinflation is wiping out your savings.
Scary thought.
Bitcoin, with its limited supply and decentralized nature,
Right.
could provide a more stable store of value.
Okay, I see. That's incredibly powerful. But let's not shy away from the potential downsides.
Mhm.
One concern I often hear is that Bitcoin could be used for illegal activities like money laundering or funding terrorism because transactions are supposedly difficult to trace.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. It's true that Bitcoin offers a certain degree of anonymity,
Okay.
but it's not a perfect tool for criminals.
So how traceable is it really?
While transactions are pseudonymous, meaning they're not directly linked to real-world identities,
Okay.
there are sophisticated blockchain analysis techniques that law enforcement can use.
Really?
Oh yeah, they can trace the flow of Bitcoin and potentially identify individuals involved in illicit activities.
So it's not entirely anonymous, and there are ways to track transactions if needed.
Exactly. But this brings up another ethical consideration,
Which is?
the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining.
Oh, right.
As we discussed earlier, mining requires massive amounts of computational power,
Yeah.
which translates into significant energy consumption.
I've heard that Bitcoin mining consumes as much electricity as some small countries.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern. And while the Bitcoin white paper didn't explicitly address this issue,
I guess it wasn't really a thing back then.
well, it was written before the scale of mining was fully understood.
Makes sense.
But there are ongoing efforts to make mining more sustainable.
Oh, that's good. What are some of the solutions they're exploring?
Well, one approach is a transition to more energy-efficient mining hardware.
Okay.
Another is to encourage the use of renewable energy sources for mining operations.
So like solar power, wind power, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, some argue that Bitcoin mining could actually incentivize the development of new renewable energy projects.
Oh, interesting. So there's a balance to be struck between the potential benefits of Bitcoin and the environmental costs.
Absolutely. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Okay, but let's bring this back to you, the listener. We've talked about financial inclusion, stability, privacy concerns, and the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining. It's a lot to process. What does this all mean for the average person? Should you be rushing out to buy Bitcoin right now?
That's a personal decision that each individual has to make based on their own circumstances and risk tolerance. It's important to remember that Bitcoin is still a relatively new and volatile asset, and its future is uncertain.
So it's like any investment. You need to do your research, understand the risks, and not invest more than you can afford to lose.
Exactly. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Right. But beyond the investment aspect, I think understanding the fundamental ideas behind Bitcoin is valuable for everyone.
I agree.
It challenges us to rethink the way we view money and the role of financial institutions in our lives.
That's a paradigm shift.
Totally. Whether Bitcoin ultimately succeeds or fails as a currency, it's already sparked a global conversation about the nature of money and the potential of decentralized systems.
It's a move.
This deep dive into Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper has certainly been eye-opening. It's amazing to think that this single document has spawned an entire industry and sparked a revolution in how we think about finance. But as we wrap up part 2 of our exploration, I think we need to shift gears and look towards the future. What are some of the big questions we need to consider as Bitcoin continues to evolve? We've covered a lot of ground, but this deep dive wouldn't be complete without pondering the future of Bitcoin.
For sure.
Will it become mainstream?
Yeah.
Like, will you be using it to buy your groceries?
Right.
Or will it remain this kind of niche asset for investors?
It's a question everyone's asking.
What do you think?
Honestly, the white paper itself doesn't really offer any predictions.
Oh, interesting.
Satoshi lays out this framework, this amazing system.
Yeah.
But it's really up to the world to decide how to use it.
It's like planting a seed and seeing what grows.
Exactly.
You can nurture it, but ultimately,
Yeah.
its growth is kind of out of your control.
It's the beauty of open innovation. And with Bitcoin, we're seeing this play out on a global scale.
Yeah. It really is fascinating to watch it unfold.
It really is.
It makes you think, like, what are the long-term implications of a decentralized financial system? Could it ever replace traditional banks entirely?
That's the big question.
Some argue that Bitcoin
Yeah.
and other cryptocurrencies have the potential to like make banks obsolete.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah, leading to a more accessible and democratic financial system.
There are strong arguments on both sides. I mean,
Yeah.
banks have been around for centuries.
Oh, reason.
Exactly. They provide stability, security,
Right.
a framework for regulating financial activities.
A complete shift would be pretty chaotic.
A lot of unknowns.
Right. It's not just like, okay, out with the old, in with the new.
Right.
We have to really think about the consequences.
Yeah, finding the right balance is key.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about replacing banks altogether,
Right.
but finding ways to integrate these new systems,
Yeah.
like Bitcoin, into the existing financial landscape.
It's like a hybrid approach.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot.
This whole discussion brings us back to that fundamental question that Satoshi raises in the white paper.
Which is,
If money is ultimately about trust,
yeah,
can we, as a society, place our trust in a decentralized system like Bitcoin?
it's a question worth pondering.
Definitely not an easy answer.
Nope.
I think the future of Bitcoin and the impact it has on our world, it really depends on the choices we make today.
Absolutely.
The regulations we put in place, how we adapt to this rapidly evolving technology.
It's a collective effort.
The future of Bitcoin, like any groundbreaking innovation,
Yeah,
is filled with possibilities, challenges.
a lot of unknowns,
Definitely keeps things interesting.
for sure.
Well, there you have it, folks.
That's Bitcoin.
We took you on a deep dive into the world of Bitcoin, explored the core concepts of Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper,
A revolutionary document.
and pondered the future of this revolutionary technology.
It's been a journey.
But the conversation doesn't end here.
No, not at all.
We encourage you to continue exploring,
Asking questions,
yeah,
engaging in thoughtful discussions.
about the future of finance.
Because ultimately, the future of Bitcoin,
And technology as a whole really is shaped by our collective understanding and the choices we make.
we have the power.
So here's a final thought to leave you with.
Okay, I'm listening.
As you go about your day today, just consider how you interact with money.
Okay.
Could a decentralized system like Bitcoin fundamentally change those interactions?
Interesting.
Could it redefine how we think about value and exchange? keep those questions in mind as you navigate this exciting,
And evolving.
it's a wild ride,
Until next time, stay curious.
and keep diving deep.
See you later.